So these clips are from back in November when we went to see the Kaimanawas in the wild. It's absolutely breathtaking out there, and I highly recommend you go if you ever get the chance. I wanted to talk about the horses and their behaviour because I feel like it's vastly different from what a lot of people see it as. Something to be aware of is that when we're observing these horses, just by being there, we will be influencing their behaviour. You'll notice in a lot of the clips they're looking at us. Some walk away from us, some seem to ignore us, and others even take a few steps towards us. Those are more obvious behaviours, but it also comes up there can be, especially in domesticated horses, resource guarding when you're around, or because these feral horses are not used to people, if we push them or get too close, there could be more fear-based or aggression behaviours. And just because we're observing it in a wild or feral setting doesn't mean those are normal behaviours. So we have these two stallions coming to greet each other. And do you notice the lack of aggression? There's mares and other stallions around and little foals, and they're just coming up to say hi. And I feel like they were also, the bay was feeling a little trapped between us. We were on a big bus and all the people and that herd. But even so, there was still no aggression. Then we have this yearling still with mum by the looks of it, and that's just so awesome. It leads to better emotional resilience, better socialization, way less stereotypical behaviors. In fact, in studies done on wild horses, there are almost no stereotypical behaviors developed, unlike in domesticated horses, where we intervene and wean way earlier than needed or recommended. What I see here, I find actually really interesting, is these two young stallions come trotting down past this bigger herd, and then that stallion follows them. I think they're playing rather than fighting. Biggest reasoning is the stallion, which we don't actually have video of, but was running around with them, and he's not driving them away. The mares are really calm and happy. But playing is play because it's initiated by both parties. And if those two young stallions had wanted to steal the mares, which actually happens less than you'd think, they'd be going towards the resource, the mares, but they're just trotting past and running around having the time of their lives, I see it as. And the stallions actually joining in with them, which is really sweet. The interesting thing about mares is that even if they're hanging out in a herd with a certain stallion or two, that stallion's sometimes not the sire of their foals. The mares have been observed in the wild to, when they come into season, leave the stallion in their herd and go and choose a stallion that they'd prefer to mate with, and then come back to their herd and raise their foal there, not have and raise the foal there. And then when they come into season again, go and mate with that same stallion they went to the year before. So unless we do genetic testing, it's actually really hard to know what mare mated with what stallion. So just because we see a group of horses together doesn't actually mean they're all related. Another thing to note is that horses don't actually have alphas or a dominant leader or even a linear hierarchy. If you observe horses where they've got plenty of resources and no need to fight, there's very little conflict. And if there is conflict, it changes on day-to-day basis and the time and the resource. I've seen little foals tell stallions off, and then for something else the stallion might nudge the yearling over, and then the yearling might tell the mum to move over, and it's all for the same resource. It doesn't go in a straight line, and it changes on day to day. But yeah, aggression normally stems from a lack of resources. So when there is plenty of resources and nothing to fight over, they're very peaceful. Then we have these guys all snoozing together. It was extremely windy, and they had well, not just one busload of people, but heaps of people watching them from a distance. But I think something cool to note is those two are stallions, and they're just snoozing alongside the rest. But I think goes to show if you have a stallion, there's no excuse not to keep them with the horses. Sure, you might not want to breed from them, but they can be friends with geldings or other stallions. A lot of behavioural problems we get in domestic horses don't actually show up in wild or feral horse populations. I think that's because our management of horses is often severely lacking. But if you can give your horse friends, freedom, and forage, freedom to move about and express their natural behaviours, that they will be heaps happier and you will suddenly have a lot less behaviours that you deem to be annoying or unjustified when it's just the horse communicating with you.